Welcome to the Agency Uplift podcast, all about the unique experience of growing an agency, the ups, the downs, the challenges, the learnings, the opportunities, sometimes the forced personal growth. It's a wild one. I'm Sean, agency owner of over 7 years and co-founder of Social Commerce Club, and today I am joined by Brennan Tobin, owner of OddDuck. Brennan, how's it going?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, no problem. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about OddDuck?
Yeah, definitely. And my dog's about to start a turf war right as I'm about to introduce myself. But
We're
uh,
dog friendly here. It's all good.
yeah, cool. So OddDuck is a growth marketing agency. So we help brands in the D2C space grow primarily through paid ads, content. Big one right now has been TikTok and TikTok Shop, as you know, Sean. So that's us. We've primarily served as a growth partner to some pretty cool brands, namely Josie Marin, Snap, Friday Pickleball. And my background's in D2C. So started the agency as kind of a natural transition after doing media buying and growth marketing work over the past few years.
Very, very cool. So I do hear a lot of people talk about the natural transition to starting an agency from working at an agency. Why don't you give us a little bit of that backstory of sort of how and why you made that decision?
Yeah, it's super interesting. So even before the agency, backtracking a few more years, I started in ecom. So like right out of college, like it wasn't like let me go and start an agency. It was I wanted to learn how to grow a business. And so I joined a company called Jet.com, which was acquired by Walmart. And you basically worked as um, like a category specialist, like growing a subsection of Walmart's e-commerce business. And I thought that was going to be like the coolest thing in the world. But realized during my time there that I thought that digital marketing was really where you grow on the e-com side. And I wanted to be exposed to more businesses. So I joined a brand Herb Energy, which helped grow 80% year over year as their first growth hire outside of the head of growth. And then realize, wow, I love this. I want to see as many businesses as possible so I can eventually start my own business. Not even thinking, let me go and start an agency. I was thinking, let me go and start a brand at some point or, a SaaS company or something along those lines. And that's when I joined BCG Digital Ventures, which was kind of the innovation arm of Boston Consulting Group, if you're familiar with the big consulting firm, and saw so many ad accounts there. So I was working with Staples.com. I was working with um, CVS Health, working with consulting brands like Olaplex and Nutrafol. And it just got to a point where I got a little bit lucky on a project, actually with CVS Health, that led to a pretty large investment into a big company. And people in the firm started asking if I was taking outside work, and eventually just started getting my name out there a little bit more. And it transitioned into a freelance gig, started working with brands like Evie, worked with brands like can't even think it seems so long ago. Oh, Checkbook, which was like a SaaS company. And eventually that freelance income started to, surpass my full-time income. And I just decided, all right, what am I, let me do this full time. You can't really do freelancing and consulting. Those two two fields just require too many hours. So I went full in on the freelancing thing and then realized I wanted to build a business out of it and not stay a freelancer. So that's the story. Happy to dive in anywhere as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for the sort of high level there. So, what have you found most surprising, or what did you find most surprising of transitioning from freelance to I'm doing an agency?
I think that nobody cares about you. It's such a crazy, like a crazy thing to say, but it's so funny. I felt like it was like a bit of a wake up call where I realized like the market is the market. And I thought because I had this great background with like, I worked at this big agency, I went to this great school, I worked at this company that was acquired, and, uh, you know, I had all these amazing names under my belt that people were just like gonna, you know, jump at the, like, just, try and work with me right away. And that just wasn't the case. Like, it was, you're not freelancing anymore. You're no longer Brennan Tobin, you're now OddDuck Marketing Group. And, like what has OddDuck Marketing Group done? What do you guys offer as a business? And
Yeah.
so it no longer became people were like, oh, Brennan's so smart, Brennan's so awesome, like let's work with Brennan. It became, what does OddDuck Marketing Group do? And like, do we actually, is there a need for what you offer? And I think that was kind of crazy because I realized, well, shoot, paid ads is, Facebook ads has been around for so long. Like, what differentiates OddDuck Marketing Group from Mute 6? And um, that was kind of like the wake up call where I started to realize like freelancing is, great for, building an individual income. But once you get into that, I want to start an agency. The biggest wake up call I had was, whoa, you can't just offer what everybody else offers. You actually have a real business now. It doesn't, talent isn't just enough. People don't want to work with just talent. People want to work with, can you solve a need?
Yeah. Yeah. What value are you bringing? I think that's the big thing is
Yeah, exactly.
how as me as the client, how are you making my life better? I don't care about you. I care about the money I'm giving you. How are you making my life better? That's I think that's the base level of where it starts.
Yeah. And I think I take it even one step further, which is like, there has to be some level of differentiation with that because you saying I can make your life so much better. I know meta ads better than anybody else is like, yeah, well, we've already gone through two meta ads agencies. I don't really like, I don't
Exactly.
really care about the third one.
Exactly. I was having a conversation with another agency owner yesterday about this sort of same concept and the idea that as agencies, we like to think that we're doing something unique and we have a special sauce. But at the end of the day, we're still solving the same problems. We might have a
Yeah.
different way of doing it, but at the end of the day, the pain points are the same. And the solution at the end of the day, even if it's different, it's going to feel the same. Either the pain gets solved or the pain doesn't get solved. And
Yeah.
so the big the big decision that the client has or the prospect at that point really is, do I like them? Do I feel safe in this relationship? Do I want to take the risk of investing in this relationship versus that relationship? Because when you get to the point where it's just pain point solution, it's no longer like you have the secret sauce. The client doesn't care about the secret sauce. The client cares about how you make their life better,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
are they going to trust you to do that? In order to get that trust, there needs to be some kind of relationship. So you need to also make sure that the client knows who you are. And I think this is where now we're getting philosophical. I get too philosophical on this podcast too often, Brennan. Just letting you know. Just letting you
No,
know.
I like it. Let it rip.
This is where I think a lot of the friction comes in of going from freelance to going to an agency, right? Is because when you're a freelancer, you are a singular entity. You are a individual. You are a person. So they can look at Brennan and they can say, "Well, that's Brennan. Um, I think Brennan believes this, this, and that because I talk to Brennan all day long, and Brennan says these things." Now you pull Brennan out and you put Brennan into an agency, and they say, "Well, I can't necessarily attribute those same things to this agency. This agency, I don't know this agency. Who is this agency?" And of course, now this is me browbeating the audience back and saying, this is why you need core values, because people need to know who you are. And it's much easier to know who you are as an individual than who you are as a collective. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, it's so funny. It makes me think of, and I don't want to get like too sidetracked here, but it makes me think about how some of the first clients I had, and this is maybe another funny story to tell for another time, but some of the first clients I had, they were people that were looking for full-time jobs. And it was like they literally had my resume and interviewed me. And then it was like, oh, I can do this on like a freelance basis. I can't do this on a full-time basis. And I got
Interesting.
clients that way because they were like, we know Brennan, we know Brennan's background. Like we've done 3 interview calls, like he's talked to these people, like even when it was, people were hiring me for fractional work and they weren't trying to find a full-time position. It followed a normal interview uh like process. But once it's an agency, it's like there's no CSV. Like maybe if you're really, really big, there's like requests for proposals and stuff. But when you're starting out, you're not doing any RFPs. It's um you are hopping on a call with someone, whether they found you through your content or cold email or a referral, and they want to know what the collective is about, not just the individual. Like literally, like they're not going to read your resume. They're not going to try to understand your background. Most clients that I work with now, I don't even think they know what I did in the past life. Like I don't think they know anything about who I was, what I did before this. All they know is that hey, we know what they stand for, we know what they do, and we know what their processes look like, and we know the results they get us. Like that's it at the end of the day. No one's gonna like
Exactly.
try to understand if you're a good fit for a role. They're gonna understand if the service fits the business.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. I totally agree. So switching gears maybe a little bit, we can both agree that this is a wild business model to run. There's so many ups and downs. It's a roller coaster on the good days and on the bad days, and you just kind of have to hang on. So with that in mind, what's kind of a struggle that you've gone through that sort of sticks out in your mind? I mean, one that you came through on the other side, and what was that struggle?
Or just like any struggle that I've had in like trying to grow the actual agency
Yeah,
side of the
yeah.
business. Yeah, I think the big one, and we've kind of already alluded to it. I mean, well, first off, there's so many. We almost rescheduled this podcast, so I'm having one right now. But I would say the biggest one for me is just been, it really is offer, I think is the biggest struggle. Again, like I know we just talked about like what is, um, like how do you like get a client and kind of like what do they, do they care about the collective? What is that? But again, like getting someone on a call, getting someone to close business, like it's a bit of a numbers game. And again, I think your offer is a big part of that. And I totally agree with everything we've already said of the, hey, the collective matters, everything else matters, but your offer at the end of the day is really what's gonna, in my opinion, is gonna set you up for those calls, and then they're gonna evaluate you across different lines. But I think starting an agency in 2020 for 20 like late 2023 when I did it was, you're not going to start an agency in the Facebook ads space as big as Mute 6. It's just you can't. Like there's just no tailwind in the market for you to go and ride on that. You really need to have something that is new that people care about. And again, like we said, that people actually need, right? Like you can't go and sell something that doesn't move the needle. So I think that's the hardest part was like really finding offer because you're basically trying to, and the founder of Jolie was talking about this on a podcast at one point. Ryan, not Arjan, but um, he was talking about how to build an agency, you basically need to catch a wave. Like if you want to build a big enough agency, you need to catch a wave so that you can grow and you have the market tailwinds and you're serving need. And I just think most agencies starting up don't do that. Like I think they believe they can still do Facebook ads. They believe that they can get people results that are different than every agency they've been with before. And some businesses you can, but to play the numbers game to grow and to get in front of clients, that was such a pain point for me, that offer. I feel like I'm someone who falls in love with like the product. And I was like, well, again, like this is my background. This is what I'm going to do. And that was just not the thing. And that's when I kind of transitioned to talking about TikTok Shop. And when I saw how the market responded when I started talking about TikTok Shop,
Yeah.
I think that's about the time you and I got into contact where I was just like, and I shared some of this with you, but it was like, and you were the one who said TikTok Shop was kind of the thing that people wanted to talk about because it was the new shiny object. Um, and even if you can go and sell those other things, and those are great services, they don't really open the door.
Yeah, so that's I'm so happy you went there because I was going to ask before you already answered the question in my mind. I was going to say how has your offer changed since you started? So we know that you're positioning yourself more towards TikTok Shop now, but I don't think you explicitly said that. So how has your offer changed from when you started to what it is now?
Yeah, I would say, and I give a lot of credit on this to you, honestly, because I had these thoughts and then I was like, Sean, is this what you're also saying? And you were like, yes. I would say that my offer hasn't changed a ton. I do think that if you're going to go the route of Facebook ads, that you're going to really need to build out like a content arm a little bit more. And that's something that we do an okay job on right now, but not a fantastic job on. But I would say that we still are some of the best media buyers for Facebook and Google, especially Google, because Google requires a little bit more media buying prowess than Facebook, I would say. Um, but TikTok just started becoming the conversation starter. And so we did build out TikTok Shop affiliate arm. We did build out a pretty good, you know, TikTok Spark ads offer, but I still find the majority of revenue coming from Meta and Google, but it's not because they were the first offer that a client went with us on. They were
Right.
just the
Yeah.
conversation starter.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. Often your positioning can start the conversation in one way, but it ends up solving a different pain point. It's kind of like what I've been saying on. I've said this on LinkedIn, and I probably mentioned this on a podcast episode or two now at this point. But it's kind of like the whole, like when you were a kid, or if you're a parent with kids, you know that like kids need to eat their vegetables. Like we need to have healthy foods, but also it doesn't taste that good. Like I know that I
Yeah.
need it, but it doesn't taste good. And if you put a spoonful of ice cream in front of me or a kid, that's what they're going to have. And so,
Yeah.
in some ways, you kind of have to start with the spoonful of ice cream, or at least start about talking about it and being like, "Hey, if you eat your vegetables, you can have this ice cream
Yeah,
too, whatever, right?"
yeah, yeah.
But you
Fair.
basically need to like have the conversation that addresses the want before you actually get to properly address the need. And it's kind of like when you go to the doctor's office as well,
100%.
right? You go to the doctor's office saying,
Yeah.
"This hurts, this is the problem," and then the doctor looks at it and they say, "Oh, yeah, you think this is the problem because it's what hurts, but it's actually a referred injury. It's actually coming from your fifth vertebrae in your back or something." And you'll be like, "I never would have solved that. I never would have known."
Yeah. I was going to say that exact same thing in a different way, which is that I think a client's going to, it's like, I think they're actually going to tell you, they're not going to explicitly tell you the problem, but they're going to tell you their wants in the form of the problem. Like they're going to say like we want to be on TikTok Shop because we want to lower our CPAs. Like it's the new hot channel. It's where we're going to experience growth. And then it's kind of like, okay, so you're telling me growth is a problem in your business right now. And it's like, yeah, just like, Meta has kind of stagnated and, we just think we've exhausted that channel. And it's like, you think you've exhausted a channel that has billions and billions of users. Like there's no way. And so it's just you start to dive into it of like, well, we haven't really refreshed our content on Meta in months. And yeah, I guess we never really paid attention to Google. And so it's like they told you they wanted TikTok Shop, but deep down they're like, actually it would mean a lot to us if you audited the rest of the business and told us if there was areas that we could do better. And that's where bringing this full circle, your mind's going to be blown. That's where it's like, then they go and purchase from you because they've built a trust in you, right? Like it's like you pointed out, you got the initial want, turned it into a need. And then it's like, okay, now he's selling me on something we've bought from before. But this person like actually listened to me, understood me. They showed us like the actual value, like an action plan. And we like these people. That's when they go and purchase. So yeah, just bringing it full circle there. But I really do think the shiny new object is usually people that want to talk about it are usually having a deeper problem in their business. And your goal is not to solve their want, it's to solve their need, just like you said.
100%. Yeah, I love that. So, in sort of a similar vein, what do you think? What do you think right now agencies aren't doing a very good job of? Because as someone in the agency game who's taking like you're doing some of your own sales calls, right? So you're talking
Yeah,
to
every single
prospects
one.
and brands, and they're probably giving you the dirt of the current agency that they're with or a previous agency. What what do you think agencies need to stop doing? What's the pervasive pattern of not good stuff in the agency world right now?
Oh man, I think it depends on the size of the business and depending on the size of, or it depends on the size of the agency and depending on the size of the agency, there's like pockets of somebody from 0 to 25K is doing this really, really badly. Somebody from 25 to 50K is doing this really, really badly. And I would say that early on of like 0 to 50K a month, you probably have a bad offer and you probably have bad marketing. Like if you're not doing this is I heard Alex Ramosi say this and I think it's fantastic. It's like if you don't have $1 million business, not enough people know who you are. Like you still can sell Facebook ads and get to like $1 million agency. It's just going to take you so long if that's your primary offer. So I would say that like 0 to 50K, what most agencies are doing bad is they either have like a really shitty offer or they have really shitty marketing. Like people just don't know who you are. You're not getting the reach, or nobody wants what you have, right? Like cold email does work. It's not that expensive to set up. Um, if you have a good offer, I think cold email can work. Um, if you have great things to say, I think content works. And so I would say 0 to 50K is like your offer or your marketing is really, really bad. once you get to that like 30, 50-ish K a month mark, I think your processes are pretty bad. And that's, such a hard thing. And again, I think it's hard for businesses like ours that do multiple things because you have multiple processes you need to solve for. And that's
Hmm.
actually something I wanted to ask you at one point, Sean, was do you think agencies should have one offer to scale? And I think most people say yes, it's operationally easier, but I actually think no, you shouldn't. But I would say early on, most agencies, their problem is their offer and their marketing. And then once they fix that and they get to a point where it's like, we're getting a lot of leads, we're getting high quality leads, we're able to close those leads. The problem really becomes servicing the business, which is, I always thought it was about talent and like, do you have good enough people? I think that's part of the puzzle for sure. I almost wonder if the processes that you have in the business to make sure that you're having the right touch points with clients, to make sure that you're sending the right deliverables to clients, to make sure that you have the right touch points with your own contractors or employees, that tends to be the big problem. So I think those are kind of the big three. And depending on where you are in your business, you're more likely to have one than the other. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, you've said a lot, and there's a bunch of things I wanted to comment on in there. Let me see if I can remember. That was some dense speaking there.
Yeah,
Good
I
good
just
thing.
start talking. Sorry.
So, no, 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 no. It's good. So you mentioned scaling with one service versus multiple services. Um, so I've heard different people say very polar opposite opinions here, and my thought around this is I don't think there's anything wrong with scaling with multiple services, but I think that it is a mistake, and you're making things wildly more difficult than they need to be if you start adding services when you haven't systematized the first service. You need I would say first have the first service A proven and B systematized so that you can then C find good talent and drop them into that service and it will actually work predictably. If you have a service that generally produces good results for clients, clients are happy, and it kind of runs like clockwork, then you can actually take some of your focus from that and put it to doing that for a second service. And you can kind of build it modularly, step by step. I think what often happens, and by often, I think this is, in most cases, this is what happens, is an agency has one service, it's not systematized, it's chaotic, it's inconsistent, clients churn, and so the agency says, this must not be a very good service. I must not be doing the right thing. I probably have the wrong offer. I should add more services. And then so with one very poorly defined, inconsistent service already running, they now build a second poorly defined, inconsistent service. And then in 2 months, their hair is on fire. They're less profitable than they were before. They've hired more people for this service. They're losing more money. And I should know because I've kind of done various versions of this throughout my 7+ years of running an agency. So long story short is there's nothing wrong with scaling with multiple services, but you're playing life in extra hard mode if you're not first systematizing and making it predictable and solid first. And yeah, does that answer your question?
No, totally answers my question and ties back to the OG question, which was what are the problems? And it's like processes. I think it's marketing, offer, and process are
It's
probably
pro
the
it's
big three
processed.
that everybody screws up.
There's also one other thing I wanted to comment on because you said you used to think it was talent, but you realized it's more process. And I would
Yeah.
say, by the way, I sometimes say process and sometimes I say process. So you're not hearing things. It's me just saying it two different ways
No, it's all
depending on how I'm
good.
feeling. So,
Our neighbor in the
um,
north, it's all good.
eh? So, I think that talent is probably one of your biggest force multipliers, but only if they have the right process. Right?
Sure.
So if you take an A player and you drop them into a situation where they have all the tools they need, they know exactly what needs to be done, they have direction, they're going to get so much more done than if they have to do it on the fly. Mind you, an A player is still going to do good work, but they're going to do half the level of work or half the volume of work that they could if they actually had everything that they needed, which comes in the form of systems and processes first. So I think that I think that if you're starting with talent, the talent needs to put the processes together so that future talent can follow the process. It's not like
Yeah.
one or the other. It's both.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I totally agree. There's actually, it's so funny. I was having a conversation with a brand the other day, and this just made me curious about this, but I was having a conversation about with a brand the other day, and they were actually at a point where they had hired an agency that, and this is a pretty big brand. They do, I mean, they probably spend $500,000 a month in marketing. And they were thinking through, well, we have this agency that is so focused on process within their actual media buying. Like they're like a cost cap agency, 100% account, 100% meta ads, account structure, cost caps. And they actually started to worry about process with for that business where they're like, what is like your process? Like that when they were talking to our agency, they were asking us questions about what's the process you guys take? Like, can you be flexible? And it made me realize that I do think there's a point where you still need that talent because every business is still going to be different where I think the process of like actual media buying in the account is going to look so different from business to business. And I think there's a lot of agencies that decided they could just do, hey, cost caps is kind of our thing as an agency, or it's like another one that would be a good example of this. I don't know, but that's probably the best one. I feel like there's so many with meta ads where they like cost cap structures. Like a lot of agencies were able to become like subject matter experts at this and blow up. But I felt like that process of like, hey, we're not going to change this for an account where it's not working was actually the wrong way to look at it. And I think it's like
Mm.
the process needs to be what are you doing for that business? And like I don't think you can have something in an account that's dedicated to every single client the exact same way. But I do think when I think you need to have talent that has free range to work in an account, but I think they need to make sure they have processes around what they can do or like what they can't do. And like what their touch points with the client for communicating those changes looks like. Does that make sense? I feel like we were
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
back
I,
toward Yam Brain here, but
I think at the end of the day, the process can't be so rigid that it
yeah,
forces you to do things that don't benefit your clients. There's
yeah,
there's
that
such
was a
there's such a
much
thing
better
as
way of saying that.
there's such a thing as too much process. There's such a thing as too much granularity because at the end of the day, you want whatever you're building to create structure for success, and that shouldn't enable. What am I trying to say? That shouldn't make it so that if I'm following the process, it's harming the client. I, as a player following a solid process, should be able to have off ramps at any point and be like, the process isn't working, therefore I will try X. Therefore I will try
Yeah,
Y.
exactly.
To be like, you know what? No, we're not going to follow the data because that's not in the process. That is
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
Do not do that.
yeah. And maybe that's where talent comes into play, where maybe the other agency just didn't really have the talent to say we need to do something else. They were just like, this is what I've been taught. This is what I'm gonna do.
Yep,
Um,
yep, absolutely.
but yeah, good stuff.
So, Brendan, before we end it here, because this has been a fantastic chat, what what do you find that's like really working well right now? Because I know it's easy to find what's not working well because things are always breaking. But from your seat, running your agency and also having your hands in some accounts and managing your team, what do you see that's working the best for client
Yeah.
results?
For client results or for agency results?
No, for client results.
Okay, gotcha. What's working the best
Put on your
in
marketer's hat
client?
right now.
Yeah, seriously. It's hard to put something in the aggregate, but um I would say it's like I could break it out by channel almost, to be honest with you. And just rapid fire that. But I think I mean, yeah, there's so much. That's such a crazy, deeply rooted question, Sean. Okay, so I'll just go by channel and what I think. On Google, I think a lot of people are so lost on incrementality and what's branded versus non-branded. Google has become such a black box of hey, you don't need to see every search term on your broad match keywords. Um, or hey, here's PMAX, you're getting results. But then when you actually look at, if you know your way around Google, you can look at the auction insights. Actually, for PMAX, it would be an insights report tab, but you could click that and it would say, oh man, this is actually just another branded campaign. And if you're really savvy, we have a script that we run in our agency to break out PMAX by every single placement, and that, how many impressions it got on shopping versus search, and then also the keywords for those different placements. That knowing that and understanding how much you're spending on branded versus non-branded is usually the biggest lift that I see on Google, because I think a lot of people don't think it can be a good discovery platform. And I just don't think that's true. I think Google can still be a good discovery platform. We have a pickleball company that does, great numbers on Google because people are searching for good paddles and they want to know. And Google is a great place for discovery outside of just like meta to the website. On Meta, I think a lot of it's going to be data. I think a lot of people don't actually know to go to settings and don't actually know to check, um, is automated website matchmaking turned on? Are we passing all the data that we can back to Meta? And then obviously creatives is going to be the most important thing. And then on TikTok, it's all about the hook. Like the first 2 seconds on TikTok is what makes
Yep.
or breaks a video,
Yep.
because attention spans are just way too small. So, um, that's what I'm seeing, I guess. Again, that's so high level, but and could jump into any one of them. But again, it goes back to the combo we had of each client's going to look different, and we'll have a client where Google Ads absolutely crushes, and it's a great discovery platform, and then we'll have a client where we say, you know what, it's just too expensive for you to acquire a customer through discovery on Google because you sell something like baby food, or you sell something like that's been around in the market for so long, and it's like a pretty high ticket item and it's just part of the process. I think we need to, focus more on how much we're spending on Google. You're probably spending on branded still, and focus on incrementality. So yeah, each client's going to be different. But that's probably, if I were to take an aggregate, that's probably like the biggest things I'm going to see if I audit a business.
No, those are all super smart. Makes a lot of sense. Brennan, thank you so much for talking shop with me for a little bit. Where can people find out about you and OddDuck?
Yeah, you could follow me on LinkedIn. Just look me up, Brennan Tobin. I post on there pretty frequently if you want to see some great marketing content, super in-depth stuff, but a lot punchier than I've been on this podcast a little bit, I feel like. So,
Nah, you've been
or
great. You've
you
been
could
great.
go check out, you can check out OddDuck, and you'll love the spelling in a URL, at OddDuckmg.com. It's just so hard that odd duck is, 3Ds in there is always fun for people, and I'm sure a lot of emails have been missed to my inbox because people just think there's two. So yeah, you can find me on there, but mostly on LinkedIn. I'm mostly active there. But this was fun, Sean. Thanks again for having me, man.
Thanks for being on, Brennan.